There's a housing reality unfolding across Victoria that isn't showing up in upbeat press conferences or polished policy announcements. Right now, hundreds of thousands of households are under extreme financial pressure, and the scale of it is difficult to overstate. This isn't a handful of over-leveraged buyers who took reckless risks. This is a systemic strain hitting ordinary families in suburbs that were sold as safe, affordable and sensible places to put down roots. More than 500,000 Victorian households are currently struggling to keep up with their mortgage repayments. That's not a projection or a worst-case estimate. It's happening now. In practical terms, it means roughly 1 in every 5 mortgage holders in the state is devoting such a large share of their income to repayments that basic necessities are being sacrificed to keep the banks satisfied. And in some parts of Melbourne's outer suburbs, the figures are even more confronting. Entire communities are living on a financial knife edge. In a handful of postcodes, the data shows every single mortgage-holding household is spending more than 30% of their gross income just to keep their home. Not nearly everyone, not most. Everyone. Mortgage stress isn't an abstract definition buried in an economic textbook. Once repayments climb past that 30% threshold, there's no buffer left. Budgets break down. Families stop replacing cars, cancel holidays, skip medical checkups, pull children out of sports, and quietly drain what little savings they have just to stay afloat. When something unexpected happens, a medical expense, a reduced work schedule, even a higher utility bill, the whole structure starts to crack. What's more worrying is that stress has already progressed into something worse. Missed payments are rising, and Victoria now accounts for a disproportionate share of the country's highest mortgage delinquency regions. These aren't isolated cases. These are clusters of suburbs where people are actively falling behind. The epicentre sits largely in Melbourne's southeast, areas that have long been home to working families, tradespeople, teachers, retail workers and healthcare staff. To understand how widespread this is, consider one of these outer metropolitan regions. Tens of thousands of households, every single one of them paying more than they can realistically afford to service their loan. That level of uniform pressure is historically rare. It means the problem isn't individual decisions, it's environmental. Most of these households made what looked like responsible choices at the time. They didn't buy luxury homes or overextend on speculative property. They entered the market during a period of record low interest rates, when borrowing costs were the cheapest Australians had ever seen. Locking in a fixed rate felt prudent. It offered certainty after years of disruption and economic anxiety. For many families, repayments during that period were manageable. Monthly commitments fit comfortably alongside childcare, groceries and savings. The assumption, widely reinforced at the time, was that rates would rise gradually, if at all. That assumption proved disastrously wrong. When fixed periods expired, repayments didn't creep upward. They jumped, sometimes by thousands of dollars per month. This so-called mortgage cliff hit Victoria harder than anywhere else in the country. A larger share of Victorian borrowers had fixed their loans, meaning more households fell off that cliff at the same time. The pace of interest rate increases compounded the shock. In less than 2 years, the cash rate rose from near zero to levels not seen in over a decade. Borrowers didn't have time to adapt. By the time salaries adjusted, if they adjusted at all, mortgage costs had already exploded. Take a typical dual-income family in one of Melbourne's growth corridors. Combined earnings that would be considered solid by most standards. A home purchased modestly, not extravagantly. At a 2% interest rate, the loan was serviceable. At 6 or 7%, it isn't. The same household goes from a comfortable surplus to financial stress overnight, without changing their lifestyle at all. What makes this particularly cruel is that many of these households are doing everything right. They're employed, they're making payments, they're not speculating, yet they've crossed into stress anyway because the arithmetic no longer works. Those who still have stable employment are barely holding on. Those who don't, households hit by illness, redundancy, shortened hours, or family disruption, are the ones now missing payments. Delinquencies are rising quietly, not dramatically, but persistently. That's typically how a larger crisis begins. Victoria's vulnerability isn't accidental. Households here took on higher debt relative to income than in many other states. Home prices weren't as high as Sydney's, but they were high enough that buyers stretched to secure properties while rates were low. Loans calibrated for a 2% world struggle to survive in a 6% one. This pressure is being amplified by broader economic weakness. Employment conditions in Victoria have softened relative to other states. Construction, a major employer in outer suburbs, has slowed. Cost of living pressures have squeezed disposable income from both ends. Higher mortgages on one side, higher grocery and energy bills on the other. Against that backdrop, policy responses focused on future buyers offer little relief to those already drowning. Measures that lower transaction costs for new purchases might stimulate activity on paper, but they don't help households already locked into high repayments. Families under stress aren't shopping for new properties. They're trying to keep the lights on. More importantly, these policies don't address the immediate risks building beneath the surface. Mortgage stress tends to follow a predictable path. First comes budget compression, then missed payments, then arrears, then forced sales. Not everyone reaches the final stage, but a meaningful share always does. If only a small percentage of stressed households default, the number of forced listings would still be huge. Tens of thousands of properties hitting the market under prices would drag prices down in the suburbs most affected. That, in turn, would push more borrowers into negative equity, making refinancing impossible and increasing defaults further. It's how localized stress turns systemic. Banks appear to be preparing quietly. Provisions for loan losses are rising. That doesn't happen by accident. It signals an expectation, not a hope. While public messaging remains calm, balance sheets tell a more cautious story. At the national level, interest rate relief doesn't appear imminent. Inflation remains stubborn enough to keep policy tight. Even a modest delay in rate cuts extends pain for households already beyond their limits. At best, gradual rate easing over the next year offers partial relief and buys time for some families to regroup. At worst, elevated rates persist, unemployment ticks up, and mortgage failures accelerate. In that scenario, outer suburban markets face meaningful price declines, compounding household losses. This is not about blaming borrowers for financial irresponsibility. It's about recognizing that an entire segment of the population made rational decisions under conditions that no longer exist. The environment changed faster than households could adapt. Right now, Victoria is standing at a crossroads. One direction leads to early intervention, targeted support, and policies focused on existing financial strain. The other leads to a slow, grinding escalation, a crisis acknowledged only after damage becomes impossible to ignore. What's clear is that this isn't contained. It's not theoretical, and it's not affecting only a fringe group. Hundreds of thousands of households are living it daily, quietly adjusting, cutting back, hoping the numbers start to ease before something breaks. The warning signs are no longer subtle. The question is whether they'll be addressed before stress turns into something far harder and far more expensive to unwind.